Welcome to a fall season episode of This Week in UNC Baseball. I'm Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity, and that there is head coach Scott Forbes of the 2024 Omaha bound College World Series North Carolina Tar Heels. Scott, great season last year. It didn't end exactly like you wanted, but it ended in Omaha, which is never a bad thing. But does that even matter at this point as you head into the fall season? Because hope springs eternal and every season's different. You've got a lot of different pieces this year.
Yeah, no doubt. It definitely matters. Anytime you finish the season in the college, baseball pinnacle, getting to the College World Series is so difficult. The longer you coach, the more you realize how difficult it is. Some of my best friends in coaching have coached a really long time and haven't even made it to a super regional. So I don't take that for granted. Momentum helps you. The guys coming back got that experience of being in Omaha, so they want to experience that every year they are here, and that's very powerful. Obviously, it's a new team, it's a new challenge, but there is something better than the Falls in Chapel Hill. It's going to Omaha in June for us, but they're still pretty special, and we enjoy those as well.
A couple questions about just sort of peeking back. What did you learn most about yourself, and what did you learn that you may have not already known about your team in those last couple weeks of the season where you had such thrilling wins across the board? And I don't want you to leave out what you learned about yourself, but just sort of go from there, because I always find it interesting how, failure creates growth, but success can too. In baseball, you have plenty of both, just in the nature of the game. So what'd you learn?
Oh, man, to answer your first question, I think every coach should learn a lot about themselves and reevaluate themselves after every season. The more you mature, you should definitely be doing that. You should be doing it during the season. I would say the thing I learned the most this season about myself is the importance of trusting your players and trusting your staff. You're only as good as those that you surround yourself with. And I was lucky to be surrounded by a phenomenal coaching staff and support staff. Still am every single day, which is a huge reason why we've been so successful here. But also your players. You recruit these players, you work with them every single day, and you prepare them, and you get after it all fall in the weight room and practice. And then when you get to February and you start playing games, you got to trust those guys, and you have to trust the guys that have been in your program too, when they come in your office and talk to you about different things. So those would be the main things that I feel like I learned about myself. I also learned, I continue to learn and focus on why I coach. And, it's funny how it worked out where we got to Omaha, and I really have enjoyed the most last year of helping these guys get to Omaha and watching their joy of getting there, and our coaches and their families, and then getting everybody out there. And like you said, it didn't end. Nobody's happy at the end unless you win the whole thing. There's only one team that's happy in every sport at the end. But those would be the two or three things that I learned the most.
Talk to me. You talked about your great staff, and you continue to shift and add in that. You added Scott Jackson. Y'all got enough Scotts up there. But Coach Jackson comes in. What's he bring to the table that maybe you didn't have? Or is he just like adding more of the good things to your staff?
Yeah, one thing for sure that we didn't have was another coach. We had Brandon Riley. He was a student assistant. But we were able to, Brandon now has graduated, which is awesome. And he has also continued his coaching career. He got a job as an assistant coach at Wingate. I'm excited to watch Brandon. He worked his tail off for us, but it was very eye-opening with him being here last year, just seeing the importance of having another person on the field to help our players get better. So that's number one. Coach Jackson brings a lot more than just that, though. He's been here. He's coached a long time. He's been in the dugout with championship teams at North Carolina, teams that have played in the College World Series. And then he was a head coach for 8 years. And if you haven't been a head coach, you haven't been a head coach. He knows some things that I'm having to deal with potentially because he's had to deal with them himself. So that's valuable. But he brings a ton of organization experience, great recruiter. He just really complements our staff. And, for our administration and Bubba and to have the support that we needed to create the position for Jason too, to be, last year that's pretty much what he was specific with the pitchers, but that helps tremendously. So I'm biased, but I feel like I have the best coaching staff in the country, but also I'm surrounded by the best people in the country.
I think the experience of having guys that have sat in your seat, whatever level it may be, we talk a lot about it's different making decisions versus suggestions. And Coach Jackson has certainly had to make those decisions and can help you with that. You mentioned the pitching aspect. Lost Jake Knapp last year. He's back. Folger Boaz went down, and then a ton of guys stepped up for you. Just sort of, if you could, talk about that rotation. I mean, you're going to start 3, 4, maybe 5 games a week, and you've got multiple arms that have started. You have multiple arms that have starred for you to some extent. What's that puzzle piece going to look like this fall, working in not only guys that have been there, but guys that are coming in? I mean, you got transfers, you got freshmen, roster management, pitching rotations. What's that look like this fall for you guys?
It's awesome is what it is. School started 2 weeks ago, and we're in our 3rd week. We got going right away because you want to kind of see what you have, see the new faces, see how they mesh with the returners. But at the end of the day, Tommy, you know baseball, I know baseball, and the separator is the guy that's, walking out there or trotting out there to that mound, and how many you have that can help you win and what type of depth you have. You saw that last year in our pitching staff. We were able to overcome 2 significant injuries, which is a huge credit to Bryant Gaines, our pitching coach, and then Jason Howell, who works side by side with Coach Gaines with the pitchers. And now getting those 2 guys back, getting a lot of big arms back, obviously losing a guy like Dalton Pence who's going to fill that role. We really like what we've seen so far from our new arms that haven't even been in the program. Aiden Houck is back. To watch Knapp and Boaz work together to come back off these injuries has been awesome. I feel really good about those guys. Are going to both be ready to go, full go for the first game, hopefully with no setbacks. So I would say that's the one thing that has stood out the most is the potential depth of our pitching staff. Because if you have a deep, as we say, nasty pitching staff, you're going to be in every single game, especially if you pick up the ball behind those guys.
Yeah, and when you look at these pitchers, you had some guys go to the Cape. We've talked about them, and you got guys like Cam Padgett and Olin Johnson that it felt like to me some of their, I don't want to say issues, but some of their struggles last year were mental side of it. How important is it to not only build those guys physically that you guys do a job of, but also getting in their heads to sort of clear out the mental noise and allow them to really produce? Because we saw clearly you thought Olin Johnson was going to be a guy. He started for you out of the gate.
Yeah.
But so that process for not only them but for the coaching staff and to try to get them through those mental hurdles, because the physical tools appear to be there.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be a major dude. And it takes time sometimes. You look at a guy like Adam Warren, go back and look at his freshman numbers in 2006. Even in the Coastal Plain League where he pitched, they weren't great, but you still saw the work ethic. You saw the team first mentality. The same thing, and that's one thing, that stands out about our team this year too is, our player retention in a crazy world where it can be harder to retain players. We take a lot of pride in that, guys that come here, that want to be here, that don't want to shop themselves, quote, around. Now, we've been able to through generous support, have a great NIL piece to our puzzle. But our guys value our program and the culture of getting better. And they believe, Olin Johnson, all these guys, like you talked about, the ones you just mentioned, if you just stay with it here and you work, you potentially, you have the right mindset when you go off in the summer. You separate yourself in the summer by doing what you need to be doing to get better. A guy like that could end up being the best of all of them. It just takes a little bit time for some, over others.
You look at a guy like Jason DeCaro. I mean, he was the youngest guy on the roster, one of the youngest in the country. What separated him, and what have you seen since he went away? Obviously, had the USA experience. Just talk about him, because I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
But he's also, he's got something there. The size, I don't know. I could say it many other ways, but for show purposes, I mean, he's a dude. He's a dude.
He's a dude, and he's and that's one reason he was able to pitch as much as he did at that age. Eventually you have to throw that out the door. He's here. He's just like everybody else from the standpoint he's one of us. And I think the thing that stood out the most about Jason was his respect from his teammates because of how he went about his business. But a very confident kid, believed that he could get the job done when he was out there. But again, the staple of our program is it's up to you to stay where you were, and you got to keep growing, and you have to keep getting better because somebody wants that Friday job. So when I sat down with Jason at the end of the season, I said, you were our Friday starter. It's up to you if you're our Friday starter again next season. And that's a credit to Coach Gaines, who's been here, Coach Howe have been here, that the culture is really good within our pitching staff, and the competitiveness is really good. But Jason looks really good right now. He's stronger. He's more physical. He had a break, but he used that break wisely. Because one of two things happens when you have that much success. You get caught up in it, or you're always hungry for more. And Jason, too, is hungry to get back to the College World Series and be that last team that is happy. So he'll take a bigger role in that leadership side, too. But everything I've seen so far from Jason, I've been really pleased with.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the size, he's got the arm. Like I said, it's a great story. But to your point, he's not the young kid anymore. He's your point was the Friday starter. I think that's a great quote to push the guys forward. Speaking of returners, I mean, we talked last year before the season started. You had some guys who I didn't think were going to play much because of so much talent coming in, and some of them worked their way in, and some of them had reduced but important roles. Talk to me about guys that you've got coming back. Obviously, Gavin, Luke, Madera. It gets thin after that. I mean, and the competition is thick.
It is. And that's the joy of coaching, in my opinion, too, is trying to do your part to help every team be its best, because every team's different. You can do a lot of things the same, but you also have to coach towards what you have. So we're trying to figure out, what are we going to have? We've got some very talented new players. We've got some very talented transfers, JUCO and off the portal, that I think can make an impact. But you're not going to kid yourself and say, okay, we lost a generational player in center fielder, probably the best college center fielder defensively, in my opinion, of all time, potentially. If they did a stat on runs saved and get to balls and coverage, take away the offense, that's Vance Honeycutt in center. But we feel really good about the pieces that we brought in, and it'll take a little bit of time. But we're also waiting on Jackson Vanderbrake. If you look at Jackson's, we're waiting on the NCAA to make a decision on his 5th year. But if you look at it with common sense on paper, it is clear that he should be giving he should be allowed to play his 5th year at the University of North Carolina. And hopefully that common sense will go into that decision. So we don't want to get into that too much. So we're waiting on Jackson. That'll have an impact as well. Matt Poston also has a waiver filed with the NCAA. But I feel good about our athleticism. You know, okay, you lost this, and I don't look at it as we're trying to find the next Casey Cook, the next Vance Honeycutt. We're trying to figure out what pieces work the best to help us get back to where we just finished our season.
Yeah, we're talking with head coach Scott Forbes, North Carolina. Don't want to keep you too long. I know you're slam busy. Folks can read Grace Nugent's article on Inside Carolina for a lot of the names we're talking about. Just sort of walk us through the goals of fall, but not only the goals of fall, the structure of fall, because a lot of people honestly don't pay attention to fall baseball in
Yeah, of
college.
course.
And it makes a world of a difference for you and your coaching staff. Just walk us through the next couple weeks, next couple months that you've got going on.
Well, we have a saying. We have a lot of sayings over here, but we've simplified them as the years have gone along. And number one, is stay with the process. And today is the most important day. So that's how we approach it. And every day does matter. That's what we've been talking about. They do layer on top of one another. So baseball is a cycle, and it's if you have a program and it's a good program to get to where you want to be to start the season in February, but more important to be where you want to end the season in June, the fall is vital. You've got a lot of different pieces. You've got your small group work. And then once you start your team, you have 45 days, a 45-day window to get your team practice in. So you have more time out, hour-wise. So we start that on Friday. But our goals really are, to try to get this team ready for the 2025 season, but to do that daily. And then we, reevaluate every morning. We meet in my office at 9:30 as a coaching staff, and we just talk about, okay, let's talk about what we saw yesterday. What can we do better? How do we want to restructure today's practice plan? But to teach these guys as much as we can every single day and to get them in the weight room. But, there's a lot that goes into it, like you said, that people don't know about. And it takes a lot. You're not going to have a championship team if you're not training at a really high level, right now, all the way through. The way we do it is we start team Friday. We go those 45 days, and we have 5 weeks on the back end of gaining strength, a little less baseball, and then they go home for Christmas. And they get back for Christmas, Tommy, as you know, we're rolling. And when we start rolling, it does not stop. So, the fall, though, I enjoy from the standpoint of you have a little more time and you can go at a little bit slower pace, because when you start the games just come so fast.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, it's fair to say that, I mean, it's constantly coaching and teaching and all that, but fall is really where that heavy lifting's done on that aspect. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I've learned the longer I've coached too is you don't want to practice just to practice. Everything needs to have, a reason for what you're doing it. You don't want to just say, hey, because we can do it, we're doing it. Because we have 4 hours a day, let's go 4 hours. You may just need to go 2 hours, and the guys might need to recover. They might need to get more sleep. So all that stuff goes into it here. And again, because of our generous support, we're able to give those guys those tools of the right nutrition, learning more about sleep patterns, getting off of their phones, just things that we're constantly working on as a team so that our guys can be at their peak. But it is, you're trying to the new guys in our program, when I hear from their families, they tell me quickly, like, holy Moses, my son looks like a different guy. He's gained 10 pounds. He's stronger. And that's we're proud of that.
Indeed. That is head coach Scott Forbes. North Carolina's, I guess we'll call it a fall season, starts Friday, September 6th. Couple scrimmages you've got going on that are open to the public, so folks can come out and check that out. But a ton of work to be done. And then I guess the season opens in mid to early February.
Yeah, Texas Tech rolls in here for opening weekend, so right out of the gate, good baseball. I love it.
It won't be long. It will not be long. Scott, as always, appreciate you taking time to talk to us. Everybody, check out the coverage on Inside Carolina and check out our sponsors. Appreciate it, Scott.
Thank you, Tommy.